Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at Luna. And I'm excited to check this one out because I haven't looked at it in a while. I reviewed this a few months ago and it was just taking off. And I tell you that it's got some good potential. It's an interesting coin. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. But thank you to my community, my patrons, of course, for recommending I cover this. You're awesome. I thank you very much for your support. Moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research. And if you'd like to do less research, I do have a signal group available to my patrons. So reference that link in the description below. And that does essentially allow for you to get 3 to 5 signals per week to ensure that you understand best practice, good entry points. And we currently have upwards of a 92% success rate. So it's going very well so far. So feel free to reference that in your own time. Also join my Telegram community. Link is also in the description below. And that just helps you stay engaged. There's no cost there, of course. That's just a good group of folks that you can learn from and grow together with. All right, we're all having good fun in there, and I hope you do too. So without further ado, enough rambling from me. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Luna. And before we do, if you're new to the channel, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to get a baseline of the market so we know exactly what's going on, so you can make a well-informed decision, right? Looking at every single option possible before taking entry. That's what a good trader does, right? So let's take a look at that here first. So we're going to start off with Bitcoin. All right, so Bitcoin, this is the 4-hour chart on TradingView desktop application. You can see tradingview.com here. I've got some of my indicators up. I'll go ahead and turn on my simple moving averages. Now these are the 50 and the 200. Purple line is the 200, 50 is the orange line there, and these are essentially major indicators that a lot of the industry leaders are going to be using, the whales, etc. So you want to always kind of follow suit, right? So a good trader will know when to hold them and know when to fold them, right? There's a song in there somewhere. But generally speaking, we're obviously not folding or holding, but generally speaking, we are opening positions at the right time, but we need to make sure we have support and resistance lines that are either above and below. So to touch on that here, the 50-day moving average is working as a resistance right now, and it's one of the more commonly known and utilized indicators out there. The 200 and the 50 are both very common, very popular. Some use the 100, but I think the 200 and the 50 are a little bit more effective. Now, the 50 is nice because what it's telling us right now is that it's working as a resistance line. It's been tested twice in the last 8 hours and it's been rejected. So we'll see if that continues to test and break through. Oftentimes you'll see the 50 being tested, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4-hour time frames before it's broken, right? You saw back here, it tested it a good 7 or 8 times before it broke. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. It actually rejected here 4 times in a row. So, 16 hours of just getting the price driven down. So, there's just some aspects of how that works, right? So that gives you an idea. Right now it's working as a resistance. So until the price breaks above, we won't see any type of breakout, so to speak. But oftentimes when it does break through, just note that the price typically shoots through very, very hard and fast. We've seen it, break through in both directions very often. Okay, that's kind of how that works. The 200-day moving average is working essentially more so as a resistance. Hasn't been tested yet in a little while, but roughly 5 days ago, it was tested 5 times and rejected. All right, so just keep that in mind. We've got a major support level at about 30,000, major resistance at 36,500, and a secondary major resistance at 42,000 even. There's a few other little ones here and there, but those are kind of the big boys there that we need to focus on. But all in all, standard behavior from Bitcoin. It is slowly recovering back from that news overseas recently. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. Now, what I typically like to point out is the same things, right? We want to look at the 50 and the 200. What's interesting is they are essentially coalescing together. Now, they're going to probably sync up here soon, and that does create a major, stronger resistance level, of course, but nothing to really worry about too much at this point because, again, the 50 has been working as a pretty strong support level, so if we can break above and stay above, it works as essentially a nice support, okay? So it's only below now because of what happened with Bitcoin. So I feel as if Ethereum will continue to progress upwards and break that line of about 2225. So 2200 I would say is my major milestone because I have my alerts set for those for my signal group because that is essentially the range in which we're currently have an open position. But that being said, that's kind of what we're at here for Ethereum. Looking at the support level, just note we have 1725 as a support, major resistance at about 2900, and that was tested a good 10, 11 times. So I think once we get up there, it will break hard and break fast, and it will continue upwards. So, all in all, we got some good price action from Ethereum right now. It's doing very well, all things considered. It did sell off more than it needed to, but that basically just means it's likely going to ramp back up a lot stronger too if we can get a little more sideways action from Bitcoin and break that 50-day moving average. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Luna here. And we work our way down from the 1-day chart all the way down to the 1 minute if necessary, right? But my favorite time frames are 4-hour and 15-minute. We'll look at those soon. But the 1 day gives us perspective on big picture, so we know where it's coming from and we understand what its average true range is, right? Because you can't really understand, or you don't want to take make an investment if you don't understand big picture, and that's why we look at this. So let's go ahead and see here. Do you see something that's quite stark and obvious with Luna? Well, it has a tendency of ramping up very quick and also selling off very fast. Now, granted, this sell-off here was May 18th. That was essentially the China candle, for lack of better terms, right? So it was just one of those scenarios where everything in the market tanked, right? So that's not abnormal. That is very standard. But what we want to note is prior to that action, what was it doing? How was it performing? So let's look at some other major sell-offs, right? April 17th was the first major sell-off from Bitcoin. That's this guy right here. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. So right here, April 17th, price comes down. No surprise, ramped back up quite quickly because the market was still at a decline between the 17th and the 22nd. So it went sideways here from the 17th to the 22nd after a retracement. Normal, all good, no big deal. Price was under the 50. Now the price ramped up on the 25th, which is standard here. This is where a lot of the market had recovered on the 25th. And then, of course, it went sideways for a while. So that tells me, if you exclude May 18th and some of the fake news here from the Elon candles, we are looking at an average true range of 1285 upwards of about 1760. So somewhere in this channel here is where the price should be, hadn't those things happened. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come back to that point, right? But it does tell us that it's extremely oversold and has a tendency of ramping back up quite quickly. So if we take its history into place and understand that if Bitcoin can go sideways or continue to progress and surpass 42,000, Luna will explode. It's gonna ramp back up. Probably gonna do another one of these here. It's already kind of precursoring that, so to speak, but it hasn't broke out completely yet, based on the fact that Bitcoin still has kind of these unique lulls that are happening. All right, so just keep that in mind. We'll look at the 4-hour chart here next, obviously, to identify some other areas of opportunity. But taking a look here, I mean, obviously we see this convergence here that happened, and that was on the 2nd of June. That was obviously a while ago, and it just kept going sideways from there. That's pretty standard considering everything went sideways at that point for some time, right? We've had a month and a half, feels like a year, of sideways action. So it's just it's about time for things to break out right now, especially with Bitcoin kind of normalizing itself between 30 and 42,000, or more so 32 and 36. We're going to start seeing some of these coins taking off because it just kind of has to happen, as that natural inevitability. So that's kind of where we're at. RSI is still under 70 though, which is great. More room for growth. Okay, so let's look at the 4-hour chart next. And the 4-hour chart is nice because it's pretty much the main go-to for me, right? I'm a 4-hour guy. Read into that if you'd like, but 4 hours is my number. That's my time frame that I love. Obviously, there's benefits of other time frames, but this gives me the best indication as far as a swing trader's perspective of understanding what's going on in the market. Specifically with Luna here, we have the golden cross, right? So you've heard death cross, golden cross, etc., where the 50 is below and it crosses in an upward fashion, so to speak, kind of like the MACD converges. It essentially gives us a buy signal, quote unquote. I don't put a lot of weight into this. You've heard me probably say this before. It should be kind of taken with a grain of salt, but if you use this in conjunction with other indicators, it can be a very beneficial tool. So that being said, that happened there. That kind of drove the price up. I think that was kind of part coincidence, but also the fact the price had been so down for so long, right? So this occurred on the 5th of June. Okay, so we got that going on for us. So great news. Price is over both moving averages. Right now, RSI is a little bit high, but it's not extremely overextended. Still a good sign. So if you have an open position right now, you don't necessarily have to close it. It doesn't always retrace back down based on the fact that it's up over 70. It's just an indication of telling you that you want to pay close attention to it. Yeah. And we'll look at other indicators to help you identify that. But looking here, we can see a nice convergence there as well. That's right just before the golden cross, as well as the fact that we had another convergence here, and that was basically overnight last night, depending on where you're at, right? So it was roughly 20 hours ago. So 16 to 20 hours ago, we had a convergence on the MACD, swung up, and it kind of stayed up there ever since. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at here. So long story short, these are some really good buy signals for a swing trade. So don't overlook them, of course, but generally speaking, with the average true range for this coin being much higher, I would say it's only half the value of what it should be. Prior to all that craziness happen, I would say that Luna is still a good value at this point. Okay. Again, from a swing trader's perspective, you're planning to hold for a long time, and this would be a good advantageous time to get in before it continues to take off. Again, Bitcoin tanks tomorrow, this will all be null and void. Unfortunately, that's how we have to preface almost every single trade. But just keep that in mind. Bitcoin aside, Luna is taking off and doing quite well. All right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the 1 hour chart. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know where I'm going with this. We're going to take a look at the Ishimoku cloud, and big surprise, it's up over the cloud. Now, oftentimes I like to mark where the MACD tells us, essentially the 4 hour time frame where we looked at that previously, but we can kind of see it here clear as day. We had this this 4 hour time frame where we had like the double ramp up, so to speak, and that was right here. So I'm willing to guess that the MACD was telling us somewhere in this range here to go ahead and get a buy signal. And I'm mentioning that just because the MACD on the 4 hour chart and the Ishimoku cloud have a tendency of correlating very strongly together. They're usually within 1 to 4 hours of each other. So that being said, when the price is over the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. Okay. When it's under the cloud, it's considered a sell signal. So we had sell, sell, sell a while back, but lately it's kind of been buy city, right? So had you identified this earlier at $6, you could have got in and made a decent profit right there, right? Again, easier said than done. Retrospect is 2020, but that's kind of the concept. So as you can kind of see, there's a correlation here. When the price is above, it's a buy signal. And it's below, it's considered a sell signal. And you're not supposed to invest when it's in the cloud. Okay. Next thing we're going to look at is also TD sequential. Now this is usually best in my experience on the 1 hour chart. And TD sequential is really just a good opportunity to kind of help you understand if something is considered it's in a state of exhaustion, right? So you look for nines, right? So this indicator tells us, it highlights it in I guess green there, so to speak, neon green, that this was a state of exhaustion. So when it started to sell off here, 9 hours later, it reached a state of exhaustion, and then it's pretty much leveled out and straightened out from there. So hypothetically, you would have taken entry here right around the 9. That would have been another good consideration for an entry point just before it broke above the cloud. Okay. So again, just something to pay attention to and look for right now. With it being at it went all the way up to an 8, reset, and then back up again to a 6. There's a chance within 3 more hours we could reach a state of exhaustion and the price could retrace back down. Again, that's just kind of how it's used. It's not the only indicator that you ever want to use. You want to use a lot of other things in conjunction with this, but that is essentially how that works. So feel free to utilize that. But again, to me personally, it's best on the 1 hour chart. People use it in all other sorts of time frames, but I feel like it works the best with the 1 hour because that kind of gives us that natural time frame of okay, 9 hours. It's been long enough where the bears are pissed off and the bulls have taken too much, right? It has to reverse. There's just that general concept there. So anyways, that's kind of what that looks like there. Looking at the 15-minute chart, it's this is my second favorite time frame. I guess you could say they're both the same. 15 and 4 hour. They're both very beneficial in their own way. So for confirmation that I look for, I look at the 15-minute chart, and I always utilize the EMA and the VWAP lines. So I'm probably sounding like a broken record to my current subscribers. I'm sorry, but the VWAP line is essentially the volume weighted average price, expresses the volume of the last 24 hours as a price. And every 24 hours, it has to reset itself. So you see it kind of catching up right here. Okay. So that being said, the standard deviation between the price and the VWAP line was too high. I had to reset, and now it's going to kind of retrace itself. For lack of better terms, right now, if you see the price kind of coming down and below the VWAP line, that basically means it's working as a resistance level. If the price is above, it's a support, right? That's kind of the general concept. Now, there can be the first couple of hours, it can be fairly inconsistent in the sense of the fact that when it resets, it has to kind of, get its bearing and, figure itself out, so to speak. But this is actually good that it resets because now at this point, we can kind of see that the price is a little overextended. There's a slight retracement, and it's working below, so that would not be a consideration for an entry point. Furthermore, the EMA is the red line here. This is essentially just exponential moving average of 15. I utilize the EMA on the 15-minute chart or lower because it works, more responsive to the price action. So that's kind of what that is here. So that's what the red line is here. Basically just a momentous indicator telling you if the price is above, it's considered more so a buy signal or bullish trend, whereas below it's considered bearish, right? So that being said, what I like to kind of point out here is, of course, good confirmation. So do we have confirmation right now? I would say no, because the fact that we're under VWAP, yes, we're above the EMA line and the VWAP just reset. We still don't have that true confirmation. However, keep this in mind, we do see higher highs, right? So this is higher, that's higher, that's higher, that's higher. So these are good sign, higher lows as well. So that's basically a step up, so to speak, and that is essentially a very good sign to consider taking entry, right? So we got some conflicting information, but I would trust the higher highs and higher lows over the VWAP line at this point, based on the fact that it just reset. However, if we're to look at, just say, for example, a good entry point, because thankfully this indicator that I have, it's basically a notification that tells you, at least I have it set up for yellow. It could be different or default for otherwise, but if you're part of my Patreon group here, for my patrons, they get a copy of this, and what this does is tells you when you have good confirmation. So to me, good confirmation is price above EMA and price above VWAP line, but it also has to be 30 minutes of confirmation. And I say that because some people go with 5 minutes or 10 minutes of confirmation, and I think that's too much because you don't have a firm grip on the fact that it's going the direction you want to head. You're kind of gambling in a sense, hoping that the bulls are in control, at least in a long position. In this scenario here, when you see these two, that is confirmation because there's two green bars closing above EMA and VWAP, essentially telling you that it's a buy signal because the bulls are in control. So to clarify, when you see that and you see the price come down and test the EMA and VWAP line, if you have good risk tolerance, that wouldn't be a problem, right? But if it goes down past the point of which you're comfortable with, you would go ahead and sell. However, in most cases, when the line kind of crosses for a moment, in this case, it was maybe an hour or so, not terrible because it's kind of sort of bouncing off, right? So if we kind of continue on over here, you can see how the price just continues. Come down, test the EMA, and it bounces. Bounce, bounce, and bounce, right? And meanwhile, it's above the VWAP line, right? So this VWAP line is kind of saying, yep, support level, all good. Keep on keeping on, okay? So again, just something to note, that's how I utilize the 15-minute chart, but I also always look at the 1 day, 4 hour, and 1 hour chart and I extrapolate all that information before I make a decision and take entry here. So to me right now, personally, the price being kind of tested on the EMA line right now, I would wait a moment to see if it holds above the EMA line, because it has a history of coming down and dropping down 45 minutes at a time. There's an hour and a half. So if we lose EMA, then it would be a consideration to wait until the price bounces above EMA, holds, and quite likely, hopefully, exceeds and goes above the VWAP line. That's just me personally. Now, it could turn around right now and it could just shoot right up. There's a possibility of that, but if we're starting to make lower lows and lower highs, then that's also a consideration to look out for. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. If this line right here goes below this point, which it pretty much looks like it is, that's not a consideration for entry. Okay, don't try to chase the bottom. Wait for it to come down, correct itself, let the EMA catch up, and when it comes above EMA, maybe consider taking entry. Just do a small entry if possible. But now that we have a lower high, that is problem. Okay, potential problematic, right? Because then it could shift and it starts making lower highs and lower lows, and it kind of works its way back down like it did before. Okay, so again, just something to consider. I'd recommend waiting on entry point at this time. Obviously easy to say right now because it's decreasing, but the fact that it's not making higher highs any longer is a good indication of a sell signal. So hopefully you would pick up on that by now, before this video is released, but if not, I'm sorry. We'll see what happens. I really hope it just turns around and comes back up. It very well could happen, right? We've still got a good 13 minutes in this time frame, this candlestick. But if we look at the 1 minute chart, it's probably a pretty steep drop off there. Yeah. So just be cautious, be cautiously optimistic, as I like to say. Big picture, my prediction for Luna is that it will continue to increase. It's likely going to retrace now, but it makes sense that it's retracing because every increase has to, decrease essentially at least a little bit in order for a good bull run to continue. So it's actually okay that it's kind of tapering off and kind of coming down, because if it just kept going up, up, and up, then you're going to get a significant retracement, and those are hard to anticipate. So we want to see some sideways action here from Luna, and to get some type of continuation, so to speak. And pending Bitcoin doing well, again, Luna will continue to progress in an upward fashion as it has so far. So again, Bitcoin goes sideways for a little bit longer, then Luna will likely increase by $2 to $3. If Bitcoin cranks up and hits 42,000 and kind of tests that and perhaps even breaks through, then Luna will be back up in the 12, 16, 18 range. Pretty easy. So I hope you found this beneficial. If you do, like and subscribe. If you haven't already, feel free to reference my Telegram community. Awesome group of folks there. Thank you all to my current subscribers. You're all very awesome and loyal, amazing, especially my patrons too. You guys believe in me, and I thank you for that. I really appreciate that. But go ahead and see you in the next video, I guess, right? That's about all I got for you. Hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you then. Take care.